If you're invested in Bitcoin or you're thinking about it, then this is some of the biggest and most important news that you'll hear this year. Because Michael Saylor just orchestrated a massive move behind the scenes, one that could inject trillions into Bitcoin. And if this works, we could be looking at one of the biggest wealth transfers in financial history. Because Michael Saylor already pioneered using corporate debt to stack Bitcoin. And now he's going to take it to another level. It's called Strife, and it's designed to tap into the $300 trillion bond market. If just a small fraction of that capital flows into Bitcoin, it could send the prices skyrocketing. By the end of the video, you'll understand exactly how the strategy works, why it could change the entire financial system, and how you can position yourself before the rest of the world catches on. So stick around, because the final piece of this strategy is the part that nobody is discussing. And it could be the key to accelerating Bitcoin's adoption faster than we ever thought possible. Now, let's break it down. Michael Saylor's new Bitcoin scheme that could potentially break the financial system. Here is the man, the myth, the legend, the GOAT himself, Michael Saylor. So Michael Saylor is the chairman of a company called Strategy. Earlier this year, Strategy was actually called or known by a different name, MicroStrategy. So this MicroStrategy company, and we're going to discuss in a bit what MicroStrategy did, but this MicroStrategy company rebranded to Strategy to signal to the rest of the world that they had only one mission or one strategy, hence the name Strategy, which was to accumulate as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. So a few weeks ago, they rebranded to Strategy. And before becoming, the biggest Bitcoin company out there, they actually focus on something different. They were founded in 1989, and MicroStrategy, which was the name at the time, was actually focused on business intelligence. So it helped companies to make sense of all of their data in order to get a strategic or competitive advantage, or in order to harvest that data to get key insights to improve their profit margins. That's basically what MicroStrategy did. And it's one of the OG internet era companies. And actually that's very rare, because many of those companies, they popped up during the .com era, at the end of the 1990s, and everyone was making money around that time, and we actually had a massive boom and bust, and many of those early companies actually went bankrupt, or they're no longer around, or they're no longer performing really well. But Strategy is actually thriving. And the reason why Strategy is thriving is because in 2020 they adopted a Bitcoin strategy, Bitcoin strategic reserve strategy. This is just fancy talk for saying that instead of using their excess money or their excess liquidity to buy bonds, stocks, or real estate, they used it in order to buy Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor, the chairman of Strategy, he's a very clever guy. He went to MIT in Boston, which is one of the best universities in the world. So he's very smart. He's an engineer, engineering-minded person. So when he does analysis, he does very deep analysis together with, his team members. And he found that there's no better asset to put your money in right now than Bitcoin. So they use all of the excess liquidity that they had in order to buy up Bitcoin. And I'm sure that by now you've heard of the term dollar cost averaging, which means that you consistently buy into the market regarding whether the market is up or down. You just buy every single month or week or few weeks or few months or quarter or year. But MicroStrategy has been buying very frequently. So here on this chart, which is actually a chart on the website of Strategy itself, you see all of these yellow dots. All of these yellow dots are times at which Strategy bought more Bitcoin. And you can see based on the yellow dots, they bought Bitcoin regardless whether Bitcoin was close to an all-time high or whether it was close to a bottom or somewhere in between. They just consistently kept on buying more Bitcoin whenever they had money available. And here's another chart on the side of Strategy, which is the return of MicroStrategy since they adopted a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So this is the MSTR stock, which is MicroStrategy stock, or Strategy, how it's called nowadays. The stock ticker is still MSTR. So MSTR has generated 2,600% returns. And if you compare that to other companies within that same period, then well, Nvidia, which is a company that's now, one of the most valuable companies in the world, they had around 1,000% return. Bitcoin had 643%, which is very interesting because MSTR, MicroStrategy or Strategy, is actually a company that's buying up Bitcoin. So how can a company that's buying up Bitcoin be a lot more valuable than Bitcoin itself? Or how can it grow much faster than Bitcoin itself? Well, it has to do with many different reasons. First of all, Strategy also has other different income streams. For example, they still have a business intelligence branch. Their primary software business that they were many years ago. They're still earning revenue from that. They still are running the software stack that generates them money. Also, the market is valuing the leadership team. So Michael Saylor and all of the clever board members, which are constantly trying to raise more money in order to buy up more Bitcoin. So they're even paying a premium on top of Bitcoin's growth for, the market is basically saying, we believe that Bitcoin in the hands of this leadership team is going to be even more valuable because they're going to come up with very clever ways to raise more money in order to buy up even more Bitcoin, which will result in the fact that the company will be even worth more in the future. So we're going to talk about all of this in a bit. We're going to dissect all of these things that are going on and the clever ways that Michael Saylor is raising money to buy up more Bitcoin. But yeah, if we go down the list, Tesla went up with almost 194%, Meta with 135%, Google 127%, IBIT, which is the the BlackRock spot ETF with 108%, Apple with 96%, Microsoft 90%, QQQ, which is the Nasdaq 81%, the SPY, which is the S&P 500. Gold went up with 46%, Amazon went up with 29%, and bonds went down with 18%. So yeah, MicroStrategy has done really well within this time period that they have adopted Bitcoin as a strategic treasury asset. Now, right now, there are around 170 known entities that hold Bitcoin. These entities can be divided into different subcategories. For example, ETFs, governments, private companies, public companies, and DeFi/smart contracts. Now, these are 170 known and doxed companies. There are probably a lot of companies out there which do not publicly announce to the world that they hold Bitcoin because maybe it's a big security risk, so they rather have that nobody knows that they own Bitcoin. But there's 170 known entities that are holding Bitcoin. And of those known entities, if we look at the segment of public companies, then because of all of the clever strategies that MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor and their team have implemented to raise money, they have placed themselves at the top of the food chain because MicroStrategy holds more than 500,000 Bitcoin. That's absolutely insane. So they've done really well. They, I believe, after BlackRock, are the second biggest holder of Bitcoin. Here you can see an overview, which is an overview that I got from Strategy's website. So all of these statistics are visible over there. So right now they hold around 506,000 Bitcoin. And you can basically read all of these statistics, right? Now, here is this news article by The Block, which is a respected crypto publication. They're saying, to put this into perspective, Strategy holds around 2.4% of Bitcoin's total 21 million supply. So there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be in circulation. And Strategy holds around 2.4% of all of that. And they're probably going to accumulate even more. Now, let's talk about the big news. So Strategy announced that they are going to launch a new financial instrument to tap into the $300 trillion bond market. So at the time that this deck was created, Strategy was holding around 499,000. Right now they hold more than 500,000. And yeah, so they have, of course, their stock, which is MSTR, MicroStrategy stock. They recently launched Strike, which is a convertible debt instrument. And now they want to launch a new offering called Strife, which is a fixed income instrument. And the whole goal of launching Strife is to raise money to focus on bond investors and to tap into the $300 trillion bond market. Because again, they want to raise as much money as humanly possible to buy as much Bitcoin while it's still cheap. Yeah, Bitcoin is hovering around where? $90,000 right now, but MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor understand that Bitcoin is still dirt cheap. So they're doing everything they can right now, launching different financial instruments to raise money to buy up as much Bitcoin as possible before the rest of the world catches on. And I think this is super genius and smart to see how they're doing this. So let's quickly zoom out. Right now, there is around $900 trillion of value locked in global assets. Now, gold has around $16 trillion of value, art, $18 trillion of value, cars and collectibles, $6 trillion, equities, $115 trillion, real estate, $330 trillion, cash money, so actual money, $120 trillion, and now the bond market. The bond market has around $300 trillion worth of value that's locked within this market. And part of that bond market is already targeted by Michael Saylor through its Strike, which is its previous offering of convertible debt. So convertible debt basically means that you're lending money to MicroStrategy on the conditions that this can be converted to stock at a certain ratio, or when a certain event happens in the market or a certain price target gets hit. So I made a video about that not too long ago, about how MicroStrategy or Strategy launched this Strike offering to the market, and they raised a lot of money by doing so. Now they are launching another offering, which is focused on the broader fixed income market. So what is a bond? A bond is basically that you're lending money to a government or a company in return for an interest. Sometimes these bonds, will be repaid, so the money will be repaid, the principal will be repaid in an X amount of years, or for some bonds, it will never be repaid, or might be some different conditions for repayment or certain agreements or terms for repayment of the money. In any case, there's many variables that you can play with whenever you're thinking about buying bonds or creating products that are targeted on the bond market. And the strategy team got really creative with this. So yeah, Michael Saylor basically said there's $300 trillion of fixed income, so basically the bond market. And he says, I just want to target 1% of that, or I just want to make sure that we pool 1% of that to us so that we can raise money to buy more Bitcoin. Yeah, so here is he at the Economics Club of New York talking about his plan. So here is basically a dissection of Strategy's announcement of his new Strife preferred stock offering. So here, Tyson Corner Strategy today announced that subject to a market and other conditions, it intends to offer in a public offering registered on the Securities Act of 1933, as amended the Securities Act, that they want to give out 5 million shares of Strategy Series A perpetual Strife preferred stock. So what is Strife? It's perpetual preferred stock. And it wants to raise around $500 million with this offering, with this Series A offering. So again, there can be multiple rounds, Series A, Series B, Series D, Series whatever, all the way up to whatever number of series you want to do. But this is the first round of offering this Strife stock to the financial markets. And Strategy intends to use the net proceeds from the offerings for general corporate purposes, including the acquisition of Bitcoin and for working capital. Now, let's talk about the specifics of this offering. So this Strife preferred stock has a dividend of around $10 per share, because right now it's at a fixed rate of around 10%. So meaning that probably every Strife stock is offered at around $100, or a face value of $100, and 10% of that face value is $10. So the dividend right now is $10 per year. And any unpaid dividends, so if the company does not decide to pay out dividends, again, the board first needs to approve dividend payouts to the shareholders. And if it's unpaid, then actually dividend will accrue interest between 11 to 18% annually. So yeah, I mean, Michael Saylor is targeting this fixed income market, and these guys, they want to have cash flow. But there's a penalty if strategy doesn't pay out this dividend, then they earn interest on this dividend. So over time, it's actually becoming more money that needs to be paid out to these Strife holders. Now, strategy has an option to retire these shares by paying liquidation preference. So basically, within this financial product, they embedded a clause or an agreement that strategy can basically pay off this liquidation preference, and they can retire this class of stocks. So the liquidation preference is $100 or more, depending on recent market price of the shares. So yeah, that basically means that if they want to pay off these Strife holders, then they can do that by making use of this agreement. Now, why would you want to do that? So here is a diagram that's explaining the strategy behind this move. So let's look at two trends. First of all, we know that fiat money is slowly becoming worth less over time. Why? Because central banks print more money. And the more money is in circulation, the less every single unit of money is actually worth. On the other hand, Bitcoin is increasing in value. Why? Because it's very limited. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be in circulation. And at the same time, the demand for Bitcoin is skyrocketing, because banks are now buying up Bitcoin, large asset managers like BlackRock, Fidelity are buying up Bitcoin, pension funds are buying up Bitcoin, large publicly traded companies are buying up Bitcoin, and even governments are now embracing Bitcoin. And with this limited supply of Bitcoin and this increasing demand, then probably over time prices will go up. So that's exactly what we're seeing in this chart. So the whole idea behind this Strife offering is that strategy borrows dollars in order to buy Bitcoin. And over time, Bitcoin increases in value and dollars decrease in value. Now, the gap between this line is only going to go up over time. And because Bitcoin is increasing in value and money is decreasing in value, if at one point strategy decides that they want to retire this class of stocks or this class of financial instruments, they can take advantage of this liquidation preference, and they can pay the face value plus the accrued dividends, and then they have basically bought Bitcoin with a discount, because they pay off these holders which have lended them money to buy Bitcoin, and even after repayment of all of those lenders, strategy is still left with a big bag of Bitcoin. That's the whole strategy, and I think it's absolutely genius. And I think this is what we can call financial alchemy, basically creating money or creating value out of thin air. And that's also one of the reasons why this strategy stock, MicroStrategy stock, has increased in value a lot faster than Bitcoin, because the financial market is valuing the team's ability to create value out of thin air by coming up with all of these financial instruments to borrow money cheaply and to use that to buy up as much Bitcoin as possible. And also, at the end of last year, Q4 last year, Michael Saylor announced that over time, it's his end game to turn strategy into the world's first Bitcoin bank. They're already holding 500,000 Bitcoin, and they're thinking about clever ways that they can leverage that Bitcoin or use their knowledge of Bitcoin in order to create financial services and financial instruments for people within this space. For example, let's say that you want to buy a house, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin, then you can deposit your Bitcoin and you can borrow money against it. Right now, that's something very new that's now just emerging in the market, and MicroStrategy is playing a big role in educating people about this. Banks are now slowly embracing it. We're seeing laws and regulations that are easing up and changing in order to accommodate all of this. So a lot of really positive developments. So strategies, Strife preferred stock offering. So yeah, Strife is a perpetual preferred stock. It's structured like an ordinary bond, basically meaning that you borrow money and you receive a dividend or an interest, basically. And it's a pure fixed income offer. So it has a face value of $100 per share. So in the end of a liquidation event, so meaning that either strategy goes bankrupt or they want to retire this particular class of stocks, then they can pay this face value, $100 per share. And they also earn 10% annual dividends. And we mentioned before, if strategy decides that they're not going to pay out this dividend, then there's between 11 to 18% of interest on this payment that needs to be made to the holder. So over time, these holders are accruing or accumulating money that will be paid out to them in the future. So yeah, the duration of this stock is perpetual, meaning forever until retired by strategy. So this stock will be outstanding, or this money will be outstanding forever until strategy decides that they want to retire it. So basically that they're going to pay back the principal or the face value plus all of the accrued dividend payments. Another important thing to note is that, whenever something happens to a company, there's always a hierarchy of who gets paid back the first. So if MicroStrategy or Strategy, I still need to get used to this new name. So if Strategy goes bankrupt, then there's a hierarchy of who gets their money first. So first are the debt holders, which are people that have borrowed money to Strategy or convertible debt holders. Then we have got Strife, because it's a preferred perpetual stock. So Strife is second highest in the liquidation process of who gets money first. Then we have Strike, and then we have the ordinary stock MicroStrategy. So this is also a nice additional protection. So whenever you're buying Strife and something happens to MicroStrategy and they go into bankruptcy, then you're second on the list to basically get your money back or get some of your money back. And apparently this offering of Strife was such a big success that Michael, Saylor, and Strategy decided to increase their initial offering from $500 million to raising $722 million. So again, the market validated their offering. They're like, yeah, Michael, Saylor, or Strategy, we want to lend you more money. And they decided to increase the number of shares that they're going to offer to the market in this Series A. So they're raising $722 million, which is a lot of money that they can use to buy up even more Bitcoin. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Is Michael Saylor one of the smartest guys in the industry? Is he the new GOAT, the new greatest of all times? Is he the new Warren Buffett? Is he a financial alchemist that is creating value out of thin air? Or is he creating a pyramid, a Ponzi scheme, a house of cards that might be crumbling when the market just dips? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And do me one quick favor, if you enjoyed watching this video, then smash the like button. It's good feedback for me so that I understand that you like this video or not, that's also fine. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, also make sure to subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be posting regular videos just like this one to help you to make sense of everything that's going on and to help you to position yourself for maximum profits. All right, hey, thanks for watching. Peace out, take care, and I will see you in the next one.